welcome to another episode of Forward to Beam Up. You'll notice that we have 5 today. Once again, Megan here, Tom, Steven, Ethan.
I'm good.
Perfect, like a well-oiled machine.
On the wild card.
So this week's episode was the naked time. Any thoughts?
I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it's not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it was hilarious.
If not for safety concerns, I really like the vibe of the infected crew. Love man was written on the wall. Love mankind.
Sinners repent.
I was a little bit confused. It might have been me and not the episode. They visited a ship, but they visited a planet. It was and why was the planet shrinking?
It was disintegrating. They never explained that.
Mostly ice, they were saying. But.
I guess maybe that could have been it. Yeah, it was kind of an ice planet, so maybe it was just melting. I don't know.
They said something about this is going to be the future of what's going to happen to Earth. Eventually our sun will go away and then it'll freeze and then disintegrate.
Doesn't the sun explode, though, before it goes?
Well, I don't think that the science is right on it.
My first impression was how ridiculous their suits were to be on a planet that's frozen.
He takes his glove off and starts touching his face.
Well, I keep telling Megan it's the future. We don't understand their ways. The thin material that we layman folks don't understand is they're super warm. That's why. I knew that someone was gonna die because that material looked ridiculous. But then when Joe talked down to Mr. Spock, I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna die for sure. You don't talk down to Mr. Spock at all. When you take off your glove when inspecting a new area, you deserve everything that's gonna happen to you. I think the director just said to everyone, $100 for the best overreaction to the disease. Tag, you're it. Best overreaction. Someone's just trying to win the Oscar.
I really liked Sulu. He seemed pretty awesome, just super laid back and prioritizes a good time.
So everybody started to go nuts on because the first guy took his glove off, got infected, and then started spreading it to everyone else on the crew. And Sulu went around, ripped his shirt off, started sword fighting everyone. And I read that during the actual filming of that episode, the actor George Takei was running around poking everybody with that sword, and they got really mad.
They said he was a swashbuckler at heart from the 18th century.
I did feel sorry for Joe. Tom, did you notice that right after he touched his glove, took the glove off? I felt really sorry for Joe because then Spock came up and was like, oh yeah, make sure that you don't touch anything. And he's like, oh, okay. It was one of those things oh yeah,
maybe you should have told me the first time.
Yeah. Before he got down to the planet.
Pretty sure he touched his face after that again, though. He did it twice.
Well, okay, fair enough. That might have been his fault then.
Fool me once,
While they were down there too, I noticed the body of the person that they showed, was a woman. It was like a mannequin. It wasn't even a real person. And I was like, really?
They couldn't afford another $20 for the day to have a real human lie there.
Everyone on the planet had also experienced this space madness, and I thought it was kind of funny that one of the examples they used was they found one man who was taking a shower fully clothed, and I thought that was kind of the opposite of the naked time. It was... Well, I think it had to do with that, not so much naked time, but naked time, whereas they somehow stripped away at some physics-based barrier that allowed them to be able to travel back in time.
No, the glasses aren't working.
It was very strange. It was at the very end, they just, by the way, we invented time travel.
So what that was this was supposed to be a 2-part episode where the next episode was going to figure out how they went back in time and how they were going to get out of this mess or whatever. And so they ended up just killing that idea, and then they just said, run the clock back. And they just...
I wasn't sure if it was just me not paying attention.
Yeah, because it sounded like, oh no, we went back in time. And then there's just burst the engines for a few minutes. And then they're like, okay, it's just 3 days ago.
Well, I was also very curious. 3 days, they traveled back in time 3 days. And this hasn't been happening for 3 days. Why didn't they go back and save the people on the planet who got frozen?
Thank you. What's the point of introducing that if they don't solve the problem?
I Some missed like the whole engine power and the warp issue. Why did they end up speeding away?
Well,
like,
they were trying to speed away to get it so they didn't fall into the orbit of the disintegrating planet. They were having engine trouble because one of the crazy guys who locked himself in the engine room had powered everything down. So the antimatter, it had cooled down too far, and you can't mix cold antimatter with warm matter. That just doesn't work. So,
His glasses.
these glasses are doing great. They're so smart.
exactly.
Thought it had to do with the gravitational pull of the planet. No.
Probably because of the vectors or something.
I just making crap up. If I had just been through all that crap too, I would have been like, yeah, let's book it out of here. We can discuss time travel another day. Like, I wouldn't be trying to go back to that mess.
I don't know. It seemed like an awfully dangerous mission to begin with. You know, let's get as close as we can to this planet as it turns to dust, and then completely relying on the engines to get us out of there at the last second.
Scotty was pretty confident. Notice the doctor teased Spock about his different anatomy. He had like a much faster heart rate and like no blood pressure, and he was like, I assume that you call that green stuff in your veins blood.
Seems like somewhat unprofessional though for a doctor to make fun of someone's anatomy.
Spock made it interesting. He's like, when I feel French, when he's like in the throes of his crying, and he's like, when I feel friendship for you, I feel shame.
That's how I feel about Ethan sometimes. And
Slapping was hysterical. Like, Tom and I were dying when we were watching this. Like, Kirk just slapping the crap out of him.
that is a classic medical technique
Dad.
when someone has lost their mind.
You don't talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
Man, wake up. Man, I'm just like repeatedly slapping him.
But then, like, that leads to his whole, Kirk's whole, like, oh, I'm so lonely. They don't tell you that they call the ship a E because she's going to be your only love and you're going to die alone.
We really learned a lot about the inner workings of their emotional turmoil that the various characters are going through in this episode. So I wonder if that stuff will play out later on in the later episodes.
How about the song Kathleen One More Time?
Oh God.
Is that a real song? It's a terrible song.
Like he's just trolling the entire ship with his jukebox repeat.
Well, I was mad that they were calling him an Irishman, and it's like, he doesn't have an Irish accent. I mean, he's certainly singing Irish songs, I suppose.
See, if he has an accent, that makes him an Irishman. Duh.
We probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but there was a little bit of parallel with the modern world in this episode as far as wear a mask, don't touch your face.
If only COVID were this fun.
Yes.
What was the science behind the doctor saying that somehow it had turned all the water in their bodies to alcohol? What were they saying?
The process, I think, of the disintegrating planet somehow also broke down the water molecules into something, resembling alcohol.
It wasn't a virus or bacteria or something?
No, because he just touched that water in the beginning. I think that's all it was. I think he just touched it.
It was
and
like
then
red
it
stuff.
went in through his skin. I don't know.
But it wasn't even water at the beginning, though. That's what was so confusing to me, because it was really blood, right? It showed it sucking blood into his skin.
Sort of like reddish.
Yeah, it was like red. It looked like blood to me. And then they're
I
like,
thought it was like bacteria.
Like Kool-Aid.
Well, when the guy did the butter knife Harry Carey, the blood didn't even the fake blood didn't even seem to resemble real blood.
that was pink.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. We also learned that Spock is half human. I don't know if anyone knew that or if it had been revealed prior to this. His dad is Vulcan, his mom is human. So that's another big theme that runs throughout the show, is him trying to fit in both worlds and come to grips with his human emotions and his Vulcan ideal of control over your emotions.
He mentioned in the last episode that he had an ancestor who mated with a human, but he doesn't say that it was his father and mother.
I think that was kind of when they were back before they had really settled on the character history, they were still kind of throwing stuff out there for the pilots and everything. Like the first 10 episodes or so, probably like I wouldn't like expect a whole lot of continuity out of.
It doesn't make sense, like, that you don't have the show written, you know, at least a couple of episodes in advance. This episode 5 or 6, and they still haven't settled on stuff. Doesn't that seem weird to shoot one episode at a time? Yeah, I mean, the storyline is like, oh, let's make up a storyline today.
Clearly, Steven has never watched Game of Thrones. A lot of times, I mean, I think they're just scrambling to get stuff done.
It was back in like the 60s when they weren't anticipating anyone having the ability to go back and scrutinize past episodes.
Well, also, I mean, I think even just on a practical level, they probably like typed that stuff out on a typewriter. You couldn't go back and like control find to see like, wait, what did we say about Spock's?
Just deny the episode even existing.
Probably later on when they started to develop hardcore nerd fan base who would write letters in at the slightest discrepancy in the continuity is probably when they started to, you know, put together a stronger standard for writing practices. Maybe a team.
Something I noticed for the first time in this episode is that there's no computer. You know, like in Next Generation or computer, what's going on here? Yeah, then it's like speak to a computer that talks back to them.
Good question. Like, it did have a replicator. I saw that in one of the episodes where they made some food. I think it was this one.
There's like a little break, like a kind of a cliffhanger, and then normally I'm like, ooh, no commercial, but I've never been so disappointed to skip commercials. Like the commercials back in the day, if we could watch.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Did you notice when at the end when they gave when the doctor gave Kirk the antidote and he just ripped his sleeve off?
My girlfriend was like, all their uniforms and clothes seem ill-fitting, and that tore so easily. It just like ripped, and like their sleeves are like just kind of not quite long enough.
Couldn't you just pull the sleeve up like?
Pull by the neck and then shut it. Come on.
He makes fun of Spock's weird blood. He rips people's sleeves off to give them shots, and
we could argue that maybe the uniforms are designed to be torn at the sleeve so you could quickly administer an antidote in such a situation. Maybe.
Tear away clothes. Yeah, fair enough.
Also, like Kirk's when he's like yelling at Uhura to get the guy off the intercom or whatever, and she's like, duh, don't you think I would do that if I could? I feel like there's so much with women. Like, I mean, I know it's like revolutionary that all these women were on there, you know, at that time period, but the way that women are treated is just like so bonkers to me. Even like the outfits that they're wearing are like, what? It's kind of interesting because it's like they're just like treated like objects throughout the whole show to some extent, and like they're stupid.
It's almost like their role is like pointing out how intelligent and level-headed the men are. It's like this strange like undercurrent of like 60s weirdness.
The nurse who was in the sick bay working with Dr. McCoy, she's the same actress who in the original pilot played like the second in command on the bridge, and so I guess she sort of got demoted to nurse. Not exactly sure how that works, but yeah, kind of along those same lines. I guess they decided that was a little too much, so we'll call it nurse. Any other thoughts on this one?
The butter knife scene where he gets stabbed with the butter knife. Like, I still think that's pretty awesome, because if somebody was like, I'm going to kill myself with this butter knife, I'd be like, go ahead.
They were all standing around like, is he really going to try? They didn't make any attempt to try.
Yeah, the other people at the other table were just chilling, just watching it. What's going to happen here?
Is that even possible?
Yeah.
And it's like the reaction of them, like, to him holding this butter knife, like insane, right? Whereas if like most of us would be like, okay,
this is Joey with his butter knife again.
Is that even real blood?
I think this moves on a theme though too, that there's quite a few episodes where crew goes crazy for plant pheromones or, you know, some disease or green girls. I mean, this is going to be like a real common one, I think, right?
We lost another.
I think you might be right.
Well, can add that to the
title. That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if somebody died. I couldn't remember. I haven't been keeping track of all the deaths,
Joe
but
did, or Joe did.
the guy with the knife. Forgot how he died now.
His vitals just dropped and
Oh,
dropped.
that's right. He just died. They said he gave up or something, right?
What did Spock say? I wrote it down. He always displayed a capacity for self-doubt. The
That's
guy
what
who
killed him.
the guy who
That's just like, oh, he just gave up. But it's like, well, really, it sounds like what happened is he became totally dehydrated, right? And just died from dehydration.
Probably. They could have just given him an IV and saved him, but
Spock
Well,
later
that's
on.
what I was thinking when he said he has a serum. I'm like, isn't the serum just water? Like,
so to recap real quick, they went to this planet. They were supposed to rescue the crew that was there because the planet was dying. Crew was dead because they went nuts somehow. Whatever it was that infected the crew of the Enterprise. So everyone on the Enterprise went nuts. And in the meantime, the planet started disintegrating and they couldn't get away because the engines were sabotaged, basically. And so then they had to figure out how to do it. They had like 6 minutes and then to figure out how to make a serum, an antidote to the poison. They had to figure out how to come up with a brand new experimental math theorem that would combine matter and antimatter when it's not warm, and it escape from the gravitational pull of this planet. All within like a few minutes, they had to figure out all this and get this done. And then they did it, and they accidentally went back in time by 3 days. But they pulled
Which
it off.
they were all like real, like pretty level-headed. They were like,
Yeah, I think they had just invented time travel, but they were like,
"This will be the last talk about this, so let's not get too excited."
yeah, let's never mention this again. So I'm
Is
just
this
gonna
the
end.
technology they used to go get the whales, the humpback whales, in the 4th episode?
Not at all. They used a completely different method in that movie, they used the method of flying really fast around the sun. And when you come out the other side, you go back in time.
I
And
knew there was some other time travel thing. I was like, don't they do it in a movie?
time travel multiple times, and like, yeah, it's like a different way each time. At one point, there was like a big like portal that they all just ran through. It's just like on a planet, it's just like a big circle that they just jumped through, and then they're back in time. Each time, it's a little different. This is 4 to beam up, although this time we got 5 somehow. And please hit like and subscribe. We're going through every Star Trek episode from the beginning till now. We're going to review all of them. See you all next time.
Bye, guys. Miss you. Even the saucer separates. Hey, Riker, reconnect the saucer manually. Excellent work.